I reminisce about my childhood a lot, and I had a very happy childhood. As a millennial, it was great to grow up in the optimistic 90s, and I often think back to those days, and especially now, how it seems like it went so fast. And sadly, part of getting older is realizing that the world is changing and that you're getting to a point where you don't understand things like you used to, or you don't recognize the place you grew up in, or things like that, or the society has changed so much that it feels like you're just living on an alien world a lot of days. And I saw something the other day that just shocked me, and I really just could not believe what I was seeing. It was a surreal moment where I just kept thinking, like, could this be real? So what happened was I went to a sporting goods store. Now I won't say the name, but it's a pretty big chain of sporting goods stores. And I was just looking for a couple of dumbbells. And I finally found the section, and the selection was not good. And it was just a couple of well known brands, I guess. It was actually a lot smaller of a section than I thought it was going to be, given that it was a sporting goods store. So, anyway, I looked at the price tags, and the cheapest I could find for a 25-pound dumbbell was $40 a piece. $40 a piece. Now, I mean, okay, I understand everything's more expensive these days, and even something like this, I mean, it's a piece of lead. And the crazy thing is, that was the cheapest priced um, weightlifting item, dumbbell or plate or anything of that size. Now, I mean, obviously there were some tiny plates that were cheaper, but they were a lot, less weighty. So I decided not to do it. I decided, okay, I'm gonna try to find some DIY way to lift weights and maybe have a good setup, whatever. We all got to find our little and big ways to save money these days. But just out of curiosity at that point, I started wandering around the store, just looking at what the prices of different things were. And I mean, everything seemed more expensive than it should. But what really shocked me was when I got to the baseball section. And I mean, baseball of all things, the quintessential old American pastime. So anyway, I started wandering down the aisle and looking at things, and I saw something that absolutely shocked me. I saw children's baseball bats, not adult baseball bats, not wooden baseball bats, not professional baseball bats, children's baseball bats, children's for like, an 8-year-old, whatever. And the cheapest one was $200. Cheapest child's baseball bat was $200. And so I just couldn't, I was just shocked. I'm like, they do know this is a baseball bat, right? They know this is not a gold bar. This is a baseball bat. And then I started looking at the other ones, and the prices only went up from there. And the most expensive child's baseball bat I saw was $500 for a child's baseball bat. Now, I don't remember what the brand names were. I don't remember all that stuff, but I was just thinking, I mean, wouldn't there be a cheap, even if you have some kind of high branded luxury baseball bat for kids or whatever, it still seems like there should be a selection of cheaper baseball bats because, baseball, especially at that age, is just a hobby, or it's a fun thing you do. It's just a childhood sport you play. But no, $200 was the cheapest child's baseball bat. And then I started looking around at the other stuff. The cheapest baseball, there was a baseball and a softball. These were the cheapest items for about $8, which I still thought was insane. Um, a a batter's glove I think the cheapest one was $25 for one. The catcher's mitts were insanely priced too, and they went up into the hundreds of dollars. But there were, I think, the cheapest one there was maybe 80 or 90 or something like that. And it just struck me. Now this is a, again, I won't say the name of the store, but this is a store I've been going in. Well, I haven't gone in there lately, but when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I used to go in there a fair bit. And of course, back then, when I was a kid, I wasn't really thinking about prices or anything, but they definitely weren't nearly this bad. And I mean, this is the first time I'd been in one of these stores for probably a few years now, and it just hit me like a train that I'm starting to not understand things anymore. They're not making sense to me because I look at that and I think, okay, baseball, it's a sport you start playing when you're a kid. And you're a kid, you're not a pro, you're not planning to be a pro. You can't plan to be a pro from 8 years old, and your parents shouldn't be thinking of it that way either. It should be something you do for fun, something you do to get outside, get the fresh air, get some exercise, socialize with your friends, and the parents can get together and talk. And it should be the basis of a very fond childhood memory, is what it ideally would be, baseball, right? But then I was thinking, the culture has changed so much. And of course, the millennial generation, which I'm a part of, is not having as many kids and really can't have as many kids. A lot of them have none. A lot of them might have one, and it's rare if you find a millennial couple that has two or more kids. It's probably 10 times less than what the baby boomer. It feels like 10 times less than say 30 or 40 years ago, I guess. And so the thought occurred to me that the parents who do have kids have probably been raised in this social media culture and and even that doesn't really do it justice. I guess what I'm trying to get at is this culture of what should I call it? Like the hustle culture, or the culture of, second best is just the first loser. And it doesn't matter if you're 8 years old, you need to be planning to become a pro baseball player or football player or whatever by the time you're 20. And you can't just enjoy things, and you can't just have a hobby, and you can't just be a kid having a fun, happy childhood. You have to be completely invested in these dreams that are really never going to materialize for the vast, vast majority of people. And so, of course, you can't blame kids for that. That's the culture they've been brought into. And I mean, look, you could say that, well, it's not even really the parents' fault because they don't decide on that culture. They're just, they're raising their kids into it. But playing into it obviously does not help, and helps perpetuate it. But anyway, there were not a lot of people in the store. So I'm not saying that, oh, dumb millennial parents are crowding sporting goods stores to buy $500 baseball bats for their kids. So that did not look like that's what's actually happening. But just the fact that a $500 child's baseball bat exists just blew my mind. And it makes me think of other things I've seen online, like Pokemon card scalpers. Like, I grew up with Pokemon cards. I used to play back in the late 90s when I was a kid. And the idea back then that it could have been something that adults would have, tried to crowd kids out of because they're trying to scalp the cards and make money and get a profit on it would have just been crazy back then, I think. But now apparently Pokemon scalping by 40-plus-year-old individuals has been completely normalized. And people will watch content like that online, I guess, and they'll talk about their childhood memories and how awful this behavior is, which of course I agree with. But it also makes me think about, as bad as things are now, they're just going to get worse. So we may think that Pokemon card scalpers now are terrible, and they are, but this kind of behavior does not end. with that. It's going to get worse. It's going to spread. It's going to intensify. And then we're going to hit new lows as a culture, I think, especially as the population ages and prices keep getting more insane and it gets harder and harder just to make a dollar and survive out there. And yeah, that's a really sad and tragic thing. And I realize that probably part of this too is these, take the Pokemon card scalpers. They're not getting those cards to sell them to kids. They're probably getting them to sell to millennials who have a little bit more money now than they did when they were in their 20s. And again, if you think different, let me know in the comments if you think I'm wrong about that. That's what I suspect, is that this is basically a cash in for nostalgia for older millennials. And I've heard other things too, like Lego sets are hundreds of dollars. I think it was a like sets based on like popular IPs or whatever, and get a Millennium Falcon Lego set for like $800 or whatever it was, or that may be cheaper than it really was. I don't even remember. But that's the thing. Like, there are far fewer kids today than there were, say, 20 and 30, 40 plus years ago. Fewer couples are able to have kids and afford kids now. But what you do have is one of the younger populations, millennials. Well, they're getting to middle age now, but they're the generation that has money, has a little bit of money to spend on some nostalgic stuff and hobbies, quote unquote hobbies and whatnot. Whereas, Gen Alpha are still kids, and then Gen Z are, I guess, largely in their 20s now, and they're struggling a lot like millennials did. They don't have jobs in a lot of cases. They don't have money yet. So I assume that by the time Gen Z gets in their 30s and 40s and beyond, and millennials get up to retirement age, then we're going to see this trend probably hit even crazier. It's just going to get even crazier than what we're already seeing, is what I imagine is going to happen. But anyway, it just makes me sad that the culture has changed like this, and that the concept of even just having a hobby doesn't really apply anymore. You can't just be a kid and have a hobby and not compare yourself to the best of whatever in the whole world. You can't just play baseball out in the yard or out at the sandlot or whatever. Even in your childhood, you're going to have to be thinking or pretending that you're going to go pro someday, and you're going to have to deal with all the social pressures of comparing yourself. So anyway, if you've seen anything similar to this, please let me know in the comments, because I'd be interested to hear about similar experiences across the country and across the world. And I may make more videos about this in the future and try to go into this idea more in depth, because it just really is shocking to me. And, I think it needs to be talked about, because this is creating it's a very toxic area of the culture that is already getting out of control. And I don't think it shows any signs of getting better anytime soon.